Alright, on to do the final temperament of the four. And these are the future thinkers who are looking to make a better world. They are the NFs, the idealists in humankind. I was kind of trying to think of an original way to do this one because there is just an abundance of NF content on YouTube because it's probably the dominant types that are in the Jungian psychology groups and psychology in general. Typically, they like to get in this kind of stuff. Many of the people who claim to be NFs are not actually NFs. Like most INFPs, for instance, are really ISFPs who are confused. Uh, Most ENFPs are ESFPs that are confused. Everyone wants to be an INFJ, but they're usually confused ISFJs or confused INFP is really, really common there too. I don't really see too many people trying to be ENFJs, and they're by far my favorite of the four. Uh, and I've definitely had the most experience dating ENFJs. Obviously, as an ENTP, going to correlate very well with NJs in general, and so that includes ENFJs and INFJs. And so, what's so special about these people? Well, they're about 15% of the planet. Um, Most people call them feelers, and in a lot of the cases, they do come with a lot of emotional baggage, and that is true. It is a very interesting temperament because it's, in my opinion, very bipolar. They're either like amazing people or just batshit crazy, and it's interesting how polarizing it is in that community of NFs. And I think a lot of it has to do with just their ideology of the world and what they want. And they have this grand scheme future world of like everyone getting along, everyone having money. It's kind of like almost like a communist mindset, but maybe not so far as that political structure. But they have an idea because they're so people focused. And so, like myself as NTs, we are systems focused, and they're people focused. So you're going to find these people, in nursing and medical and uh, people who help people get off of substance abuse, caseworkers type things. They're going to volunteer. Some are even lawyers. I've known plenty of NF lawyers that usually get involved in civil services and things like that. They're the philosophers. INFPs always seem to get into education for some reason. And so I have a theory on that. It's because INFPs are so afraid of not being heard that being in a group with children or students who have to listen to them gives them, their platform they always desire and need because they usually get pushed around a lot. And as an NT, I think a lot of us abstracts kind of stick together because we kind of have an idea and being the minority and not really fitting into the 70% sensor world and just being really confused about a lot of things and why the world is the way it is. But NTs are systematic and we can get involved in the system and we can kind of like sneak around in it and kind of just do our own thing and not really care about this kind of stuff because we're not part of it, but we are. Well, NFs are kind of like not systematic at all. You know, and NFPs have one systematic portion in them. So they have their third side of the mind, their aspiration, either an ISTJ or an ESTJ, and there's that. But for the most part, they don't really think in systems. They think in humanity and think in people and what's best for everybody, not necessarily what is going to work. And so a lot of their ideologies, in my opinion, are idiotic and stupid and aren't really going to work. But NTs, at least in my experience, and I spoke to many of them, have like a kinship to protect NFs. And so I get very emotional, which is weird for me when I talk about them because um, they are such deep down good people that want such good things. But most of the time it's going to fail because most of the time, 70% sensors don't want change. They want to keep life the way it is. And so when you think of NFs, and these are the people who spearheaded social change in our world, and they start religions, they start political movements, uh, different things like that. And there's different types that do these kind of things. And the reason why, if you look at them, and how people focused they are. You got the NFJs and the INFJs are triple interest. Where we talked about interest, about what is in it for you, what's in it for me, win-win situations. That's what they're always looking for is interest. Okay, and then the ENFPs and INFPs are triple affiliative. Okay, so what's right and wrong for the community? Now, all of these are at least double interest or double affiliative, and some triple, some triple. And so you see how their minds are, and so it's when we talk about the abstracts, why we're abstracts because we're not really necessarily balanced people. NTs are not balanced people because we lack interest or we lack the affiliative nature because we're just about systematics being pragmatic. While NS are unbalanced because they lack pragmatism or they lack systematic. And so all of us abstracts are not really balanced people when it comes to life. And so we see things almost in a one-sided way. But with this one-sided way, you have people such as Jesus Christ, an INFJ, who wanted to come through, the Sanhedrin and, the Jewish system of things and tell the truth about how corrupt and evil their SJ society was, and it got himself killed. The same thing in Martin Luther King. Hey, this is the corrupt system that exists. Let's change it. He got himself killed. And so when you think of like the Buddhist monk who lit himself on fire to protest the war, that to me is an INFJ. That's SI demon. I'm going to burn myself as a spectacle to prove a point so everyone knows. And these are kind of how these people are, and they're just ready to light themselves on fire for humanity. This is typically what they want to do. But then there's also, the corrupt styles, the ENFPs that start cults, for instance, the Joseph Smiths. I had heard that Charles Taz Russell is an ENFP. ENFPs do start cults. Okay. Muhammad, ENFP, these type of people start these cults, and they're the way they teach is you can kind of see how it's like the TE Child look, where it's kind of like seedy, where it's like anything could be true, and so they don't necessarily verify. So you look at their writings, and it just sounds like an absolute madman, because when you have to research like the Book of Mormon, you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about, ENFP. And so this is a way they could be depraved. In a way, Charles Taz Russell's writings, just making up shit. And so, but their intentions could have been good. I don't know. I didn't know the people, and so with their writings, most people liked Charles Taz Russell. Most people liked, at least the people following Joseph Smith liked him. Obviously the government didn't. He got himself killed. But you see these types of people, and they have an ideology that they want to spread around, and they get involved in things. And so where am I going with this is when you look at these people, remember they're either double interest or they're double affiliative. So it's all about social change and all about focusing on people and changing them for that. And so you'll know an NF when you see one. SPs like to get confused at being NS because they're interest based too. And SPs typically are going to get involved in the political system more aggressively. And so you see like people like Antifa attacking women and children and stuff like that and getting real aggressive. I doubt those are NS. Those are probably SPs, probably ESFPs or ISFPs, and which can get real emotional like that and start like attacking people like brown coat Nazis and stuff like that. So that's not really the NF way to do it. I've dated an ENFJ, and he was always volunteering for children. He was always doing like volunteer speech shows for schools and stuff like that. And I actually felt really guilty as an NT because I was just like, I'm kind of holding him back because I don't want to get involved in the affiliative. I have no interest in that. I'm doing some of these videos kind of out of FE guilt, but to actually really get involved in the community and try to change the community, I really don't care. That's not really an NT thing. I'm ready to support NS for that, but NFs really, really try to do stuff even if it seems impossible. And that's what I admire about them. And many times I feel that their lack of being systematic can get them in trouble and get them really, really hurt. And so, as an NT, I always feel like I need to protect them. Um, and so, in the communities, when I see people picking on an ENFP, I always get real defensive of them, especially INFPs. I get really defensive of them, and I hate people picking on somebody that's trying to do good and making fun of somebody who's trying to do good. Now, granted, I don't believe in most of their philosophies or in most of what they want to achieve politically. As an NT, we're pragmatic and typically lean toward libertarian, and they're really authoritative, in my opinion. Granted, that's not always the case. You see people such as Ron Paul as an INFP, and if you listen to his soft-spoken voice and always lacked the charisma to do anything politically, but his philosophy was always there, and people really cherished it. You have right-wing people like Alex Jones, for instance, an ENFP, and he gets to get his philosophy all over the place too. So it's not always necessarily left; it could be right as well. Another, I mean, Chase is saying Conor McGregor is an ENFP, which is interesting to me because you don't really think of them as fighters, but with extroverted intuition, it could be that case, and you be able to anticipate what people are going to do. Uh, and so these are the people that really, really get involved in the community. The XJW community is definitely lacking in NFs. I maintain that Amber Scora is an ENFP, and that's the only person I really can confirm in the activist movement that falls in that line. I will continue to type other apostates to see if we have some more. But I was thinking stop the shunning. Bethany was an ENFJ, but I'm talking with some peers, and she might be a little too sour for that. I don't know. She's definitely direct initiative control. She could be an ENFJ, but it doesn't really matter. She's retiring today anyways. And so I think the XJW community definitely needs an INFJ or an ENFJ leader to really drive the social change, if that's going to be the case. Not that I don't think that Watchtower is ever going to go away. I think at best we can get them to reform some, the shunning policies and maybe the blood policies and things like that. Well, I don't think they'll ever reform the blood policies. They'll just get saved by artificial blood or whatever. But I might be rambling a little bit too much more on this thing. So, anyways, NS, these are people focused. They're very affiliative. They're very interest based. They lack systems. They lack pragmatism, and they typically are going to group together. And when they get in control, they build communes. So you kind of think of them as like the hippies that get together and everything's equal because they want what's best for everybody. Okay, and so that's my thoughts on that. NTs like to protect NS. I do like dating INFJs and ENFJs, but definitely the emotional turmoil is very hard on me as an ENTP, and dealing with their emotions is very overwhelming. But they are good lovers, so there is that. So, anyways, those are my thoughts on NFs.